All right, friends, welcome to our very last session with Naomi Shihab Nye, part of the Turning Toward Grief webinar and retreat. It really has felt like a retreat, a kind of time outside of time for us this week, these past 4 weeks, actually. And so as you're zooming in, we always love to hear where you're zooming in from. What's the weather like? It's chilly but bright here in Vermont, and we are very, very happy to be with you. So we'll give everyone a little grace period as they're logging on today, but let us know where you're coming in from. And yes, Naomi says sunny and bright in San Antonio. No surprise there. Welcome, welcome as you're joining us here. Always fun to see where people are coming in from all across the country and some friends in Canada as well. So we love you, Canadians. Thank you for joining us. Oh gosh, 60 in Wisconsin. Jealous.
I'm interested in Oakland, swirly. I love that
Hmm.
description.
Swirly, yeah. I wonder what that means.
My mental state.
I know. Maybe that's more internal weather than external weather, although it
You
could be both. We have quite a few people here. I half wonder if we aren't representative of every state almost. I don't know if there are any states that we don't have on the list. All right,
think that
friends. Yeah, it's been a wonderful group. They are thrilled and excited to have you, Naomi. So, you all know who Naomi Shihab Nye is, but for those who don't, Naomi is the author of numerous collections of poetry, novels, some of which are labeled young adult, but I always tell people, don't worry about that label. They're really for everyone, because I'm not a young adult and I love them all. Just some highlights here that I pulled out from my bookshelf. Honeybee, book I love. Everything Comes Next, which is a collected and new poems that came out a couple years ago that sustained me during the pandemic. Castaway Poems for Our Time, a lot about garbage because Naomi has a practice which I have tried to adapt somewhat of picking up garbage and beautifying her neighborhood when she needs an uplift. Voices in the Air. And any of you who work with me know that one of my favorite books lately has been Grace Notes, a beautiful collection of poems about family and about Naomi's family. And I was thinking today as I was looking through some of Naomi's books and listening to her read some of her poems that one of the things that I've loved most over the years is that Naomi is all about honoring people, places, things in her poems. And it inspires me to do the same, to speak for those who may not have a voice. And so much of it seems to come down to justice, wanting justice in what feels like a very unjust world right now. So, welcome, Naomi. We are thrilled to have you, and we would love it if you would start with a poem. It can be dealer's choice, any poem you would like to share with us.
choice. I like
I
that.
know, I know.
Well, it's such an honor to be with you all. I see the names of um, friends on the list here and new friends. I'm happy to meet you. James is such an important landmark poet and friend to poetry lovers and readers. I feel so grateful to be invited to be here with him. We're excited that he's coming to Texas in March to do a reading and a workshop, which I plan to take. very excited about your workshop. And I just am so grateful for people like James who continue to spread a warmth around language, around compassion, um, around text and memory and everything that we all write about. So thank you, James. You are so important to us. And when I mention your name in many different venues, people always perk up. There's like a little boost of joy goes around the room, a ripple. So I thought, because we're talking about a topic here which we all experience and recurrently, grief, and figure out ways to live with it and befriend it or allow it to befriend us, not to be grappling with it all the time, but to find some sort of camaraderie in how we live alongside one another. Last night, I received in one of those mysterious night mail packages a new anthology
Mhm.
done by a recent poet laureate in Texas, Amanda Johnston. She's the editor of Praise Song for the People, Poems from the Heart and Soul of Texas. Now, I know that I am not living in the favorite state of many of you out there, but I would like to remind you that we are very much a half and half state, and all kinds of wonderful, beautiful things go on here too, all the time. Last night, I was part of a huge community celebration of positivism and creative work in many fields. And I had the luxury of being the MC for the event. So I got to talk about every single person who was presenting. And it's a good reminder these days that wherever we are, there are so many people doing good work and trying to do more good work with whatever resources they have. So, Amanda Johnston, in her brand new book, invited Texas poets to praise somebody. She wanted this to be a book about people, and and she said very clearly in her invitation, it doesn't have to be someone you know personally. It could be just someone you see repeatedly or admire from a distance for secret reasons. So I wrote to the bus driver who swings around my corner every morning at about 5:30 a.m. I first see his bus, and I'm often out there hand watering a few vines and plants. And so this is called Driver. Not the best title, I realize now. Your postage sized face in the red bus, lumbering around our corner at Sheridan and Main, comforts a slow moving pedestrian or quiet homebody watering vines. You are steady at the wheel, staring straight ahead. We could climb on if we wanted to, be carried safely to another part of town, another life. Only rarely you raise your hand to say hi. Maybe it's against the rules. I always raise mine, though, as I still do to trains, like a child. And sometimes you toot, and there's a moment of connection, and I still smile. Where do you live? Are you sick of your route? We were young and happier once. We rode the bus all the time, south on Blanco Road, or all the way to Wisconsin, awakening, achy, staring out the windows at a blurred field, while you, mysterious, beautiful you, remained miraculously alert, sure of destinations, eyes pinned to pavement and the coming day. Um, I was always, as a young worker, very interested in people who were on night shifts, or when I worked in restaurants as a teenager, for example, who was coming on to work as I was leaving, and I would just think, well, that person has it a little harder than the rest of us do because we're going home to have dinner and relax and sleep, and they're just starting work right now. Um, so I've always liked to notice the sort of the unsung worker in any place, and yeah, so I'm grateful to Amanda for Praise Song for the People. And I hope if any of you work in teaching situations, I've already scanned through to see a lot of these are being written toward, like the coach at our high school, whom I didn't
Mhm.
play on any teams, but I'll never forget how he treated people in the hallways, or, just a kind of graciousness, which I think many of us are hungry for in our
Yeah.
daily lives right now.
Yeah. And
It,
that's a great title, Praise Song for the People.
it
I
is a
love that.
beautiful title, and I think it does help us. I didn't really connect this to grief so well, but when I'm feeling particularly grief stricken, is a moment when I feel I have to find something to praise.
Yeah.
I have to go out and take a walk. I have to pick up trash. I have to go see a neighbor who might be ailing. I have to take some cookies somewhere, because if you can extend yourself in any kind of praise, in any kind of way, it transforms your grief for the moment.
Mm. I think that's beautiful, helpful advice. And I love that brief of praising the unsung. I mean, especially when it comes to people, and especially if there's someone that we secretly admire who may never know that we're praising them because it changes them without them even knowing it, from afar. I have to do that myself. I don't know if I've ever done that, but the checker at the grocery store, the librarian who learned my name after 10 years of going there finally, all those
Ah, she was
things.
proud to be your librarian. Wouldn't be? Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah. And, I think there are always creative ways that we can figure out how to do this. I've had this little scenario floating in my mind for a few months now that I want to go buy a bunch of little herb plants, like in the tiny, nice little pots, a whole bunch of them, and have them like in a big flat box and go around this neighborhood where I've lived for more than 40 years, old neighborhood, downtown San Antonio, between the river and the creek, and knock on every door of every house where I don't know the people.
Mm,
Because after this long, you know a lot of the people, but there's still some people I've never laid eyes on them who lives in that house. I don't know their names. I don't know what they do. And just say, hey, we've been neighbors for a while now. And so here's a little basil plant or rosemary plant or mint, whatever they could keep in their kitchen that'll live through the winter. I just wanted to say hi to you and meet you. I think that's my holiday project.
that sounds great. I would be more than happy to receive a basil plant from an unknown neighbor. That would be very welcome. And I love how you're talking about transforming the energy of grief, disconnection, into an offering. I feel like that's what you do so well in your poetry, Naomi, is that it becomes an offering or a gift to the world, to a particular person or a particular place, oftentimes, but then it becomes an offering or a gift to anybody who reads it too.
Thank you so much, James.
Yeah.
Well, I feel how other people's poems written out of grief are such brave acts of intimacy and generosity. And, many times when you read someone else's poem coming out of their own grief, you feel as if simply that acknowledgement that you're not alone in yours, even if they're very different griefs at that moment. Um, that's such a help to all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be the same kind of grief that you're feeling. It doesn't even have to be the loss of a particular loved one. Someone could be talking about a transition or losing a job or, just losing a country, that can be a huge piece of something. So we can have collective grief, we can have personal grief, but there's something about the energy of a poem, like you're saying, Naomi, written out of a space of grief that we can receive it even if we have not experienced that particular grief, that it becomes more universal.
Right. And we acknowledge the authenticity of this expression. You know, this person
Yes.
wasn't afraid to speak this or try to shape it into words. You know, James, something I've mentioned now and then in classes over the past few years that seems to surprise people or give some people relief is I tell them, you don't have to love a whole poem. Just
Yes.
if a phrase grabs you, or if a few lines, like here, for example, here's a Seamus Heaney book I've had for a long time called Seeing Things. And I pulled it out last week because I was going to a reading of four visiting Irish poets, and they all work at the Seamus Heaney Center in Belfast, and or have had some relationship with the center. And I just realized how, for me, he has always been a poet who gives me lines as much as whole poems. Like the beginning of this poem: where does spirit live? Inside or outside? Things remembered, made things, things unmade. I have this line marked for a long time because I think it reminds us, you know, if your spirit is flagging or falling apart, make something. Just make
Mm.
something. Remember something else, not the thing which is causing you so much pain to remember or acknowledge at this moment, but something else. You know, it's a simple two lines, but I think it's so
Yeah.
provocative because it challenges each one of us. Where does spirit live? How many
Mhm.
things create spirit? Your spirit isn't only one thing. Um,
Mm.
so I don't know. That's a thought about
Yeah.
loving just pieces of poems. And some people have said to me, well, I thought that would be insulting to a poet. And I said, are you kidding? I think any poet would be happy if you came up and said to them, I love this phrase from one of your poems. You don't have to
Mhm.
love or remember the whole poem, but if it's just a little bit of it, um,
Yeah.
I think there's a sweetness in that.
There is, yeah. And I think any of us who are readers probably, I mean, I love many poems, and there are those like electric phrases that just stand out to you while you're reading. And if I were, I don't know, putting together a book of quotes or something, it's like this would be the pithy piece of that poem. The whole thing maybe belongs to get to that for the individual poet, but for us, we need those pieces because especially, I can't speak for other people, but I know grief brain is a real thing and your brain is scrambled. And so you may not be able to take in, whole epic Seamus Heaney poems or something, but you can take in little pieces. And I love
Yes,
that idea of a commonplace book, where a place where you keep favorite poems or quotes that Leah is bringing up. Um,
beautiful.
yeah,
Yes.
that's a great idea.
And yes, the person who just mentioned going to see Hamilton again and feeling how certain lines stand out and just,
Yes.
they grip you. Yes. And
Yeah,
how you hear things differently in times of grief. Oh, yes. So um, shall we read a few more things? Shall we?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did give folks a packet with some of your poems, but you are welcome to read whatever you wish. I know that for me, if I'm being selfish, I would love to hear you read Forgiveness Circle
Oh,
from
yes.
Grace Notes. Do you know that poem I'm talking about?
Well, it makes me happy that you like that, James. Thank
I love that poem
you.
so much.
And the poem makes me, it makes me happy to read it.
I
It's,
know.
yeah. So when I awakened this morning, my phone was scrolling a whole reel of portraits of my mother,
Mm,
and maybe it's she was anticipating you and my reading this poem.
Yes, and that we would bring her words back to life through this poem. It makes me smile and laugh every time. And I read it out loud to Brad the other day, and he started laughing. And it's just we get into these places where we think like, oh, let's do this spiritual, lovely practice, and before someone passes away, and they're just not having it.
Right,
I love
right.
that.
Yeah. Well, here it is, very short poem. Forgiveness Circle. Before my mother died, I wanted to try something I'd heard about. We sat out on the porch together. I said, I'll go first. Please forgive me for losing my patience sometimes, for pushing you when you didn't want to exercise or eat, for not always being as sweet as I should have been. I paused to let her take this in. Then I said, It's your turn. She said, I got nothing. And as I said somewhere recently, I said, if you knew what a stickler my mother was for grammar, perfect grammar, you would know how even the fact of her saying, I got nothing, which is like officially grammatical, was kind of shocking to me because this is a person who's never said ain't in her life,
Wow.
uh, never cussed, never, she used to write to television programs complaining if they used wrong grammar. I think that's even in the book.
Yeah.
They would answer her and apologize. And I remember thinking, gosh, mom, it's not your responsibility how everyone talks. But yeah, the fact that she would say, I got nothing was also part of the humor for me.
Do you think she really believed that? That she had lived in such an exacting way that she had
Yeah,
nothing to atone for whatsoever?
I do. I think she really believed that. Thank you, Emily, for your comment, since you were very kind and knew my mother, and she thought you were the greatest. Yeah, I think she really believed that. She had a very selective memory. She was one of
Mm,
those people who could really sift out anything that she might have felt guilty about or regretful about. She was able to lose it. Some of us can't lose it. We keep it forever. Um, but she was able to not have it. So yeah, I think she really believed it. There
mm.
was a there was a clarity and a purity about her at the end that I would never argue with. I wouldn't have wanted to
Yes.
settle it. Yes.
Yeah. I think that comes through in the book, like very exacting, no nonsense, there were no arguments to be had.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And I appreciate everyone's comments. Yeah, no grievances on her part.
Mm,
And
yeah.
as the days go by, I I realize, James, how how we just keep living with our loved ones. I mean,
Yes.
this is the thing that I guess everyone realizes to some degree or another, how they don't leave us, how they are in our DNA, how we are so wrapped up together, and that it's much more than memory. I was just reading a very, very sad Texas news story about unfortunately, a notorious victim of a suicide 2 days ago in Texas, the young Dallas Cowboys football player. And
Mm,
uh, his family made a statement that this is only 2 days since he died, that they're, please give us privacy because we are plumbing the depths of our grief. And I thought, like, give them forever. I mean, we're
yeah.
all going to be plumbing the depths of our grief forever about so many different things. I guess unless you're my mom, but um, but it really touched me because I thought, those of us who have lived with shocking losses or losses we anticipated, and the years go on, and as I think I say in the intro to Grace Notes, Alistair Reid, the great Scottish poet, who said, "Now begins the conversation, going on and on and on." But I also think now begins the relationship, going
Yeah.
on and on. And it's just so important to keep speaking out of the grief, and keep questioning, and uh, asking questions. I continue to ask questions of my beloveds who have died, and I do feel like I get new answers too when you just
Hmm.
put a question out there. And often it comes to me when I'm in motion, like walking or driving. Then the new question will come, like, just something I had never thought to ask. And um, it was William Merwin, W.S. Merwin, who told me right after my father died, well, keep talking to him out loud, out
Hmm.
loud. And he
Yeah.
said, because there's no reason you should lose both sides of the conversation. And if you're lucky, you won't lose either side. Just keep
Hmm.
talking out loud. You have to keep up your part of the conversational relationship. And that meant so much to me then. And I talked to him too. I mean, I'm always
Hmm.
asking him things. What would you
Yeah.
do in this circumstance? And I feel that the answers are closer to rise if you speak it out loud. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely been my experience that the relationship doesn't end and it only deepens. And I remember, I think I saw you reading somewhere before we knew each other, and it was maybe a year and a half after your dad had died, and you quoted the Alistair McReed piece too, that the relationship begins now. And that was a great comfort to me when I lost my own father. That was a great comfort when I more recently lost my mother, that it ends in the way we would like it to just stay going on Earth. I would definitely like my loved ones still here, but we don't have to lose that connection. And I think that's an important message for all of us to hear. And those of us who write, I mean, I feel it comes through the writing quite often. It comes through dreams. It comes in the everyday, speaking into the air and listening.
And you keep inviting it. It's as if
Yes.
you keep that door open. If we keep the door open, more can come through the door.
Yeah.
So I was remembering this very endearing and challenging class this morning, James, as I was thinking of our gathering here today. So years ago, gosh, maybe 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I had agreed to do a night class, which is not my strongest time of day. Like, it was like between 6 to 9 or 7 to 10.
Wow.
How am I even talk at that time of day for 3 hours with a class? And I remember at the first session, I was impressed by the group who showed up, and also the fact that I had a few commuters in this class, because that meant they were going to have to drive home in the way dark night, like coming 90 miles or 70 miles to take this class. And so I was interrogating them at the first session. Are you going to sleep in town? Do you have a friend here? How are you going to pull this off? But we went around. I thought it was important with this group of people who were investing 3 hours of their evening in like an 8-week course to find out why they had come. And I don't always ask that of a group, but these were all adults, and I thought they would benefit. They were all obviously from different walks of life, very rural people, urban people. There were two lawyers in the class, I remember, and that
Wow.
interested me. And so we went around, and two people said that they really were suffering with overwhelming grief,
Mm.
and they thought that maybe a poetry circle could help them, because they were not in a circumstance or a mood to be in therapy, or whatever the situation was. They just said, I need to speak. uh, but then they said interesting things. uh, One person said, I cannot face this grief from my current age.
Hmm.
So I'm curious if writing poetry could transform me to another age. And I thought,
Wow.
oh, that's intriguing. Well, when were you the most joyous in your life? And I remember she said instantly, when I was 12.
Mm,
I was 12, and I was very happy when I was 12.
mm.
Uh, I said, well, then you are only going to write as a 12-year-old during this class. And this was kind of off the cuff.
Wow.
I didn't know any of these people. I didn't know, what this would involve. And she looked a little shocked. And I said, for example, you won't be using vocabulary that you wouldn't have known at the age of 12, or
Mm,
you won't be talking about things you wouldn't have talked about at the age of 12. If you're saying you want to write from a different age, let's try this because that's your joyous time. And another person said he was suffering great grief, but he did not feel ready to face anything head on.
mm,
And he had always liked poetry because poetry seemed the most mysterious and hinting of the genres. He said, like, you can read a poem and not be absolutely certain what instigated the writing of that poem, but it still carries you somewhere. So I'm wondering if I could find a way to help my grief, but not face it head on because I can't.
mm,
So as the weeks went by, it became clear that he had to write like he was circling the grief. Like
mm,
he was not in the exact gravity point of the grief, but he was moving around it in his poems. He was like creating a map which encircled his own grief. And for quite a few weeks, I really had no idea what these people's griefs were, but they started giving more clues as the 12-year-old wrote and as the circling person wrote. And afterwards, I remember thinking, as wonderful and bonded as this class became, those were probably the two people I would remember best because they had come in with such a sense of suffering and urgency. And I felt that they were leaving at least lifted by their own voices or the
mm.
power of their own voices to help them navigate whatever exactly it was that they needed to live with. And that was a real lesson to me because it made me think about, how the great teachers are the ones. I mean, not that I was a great teacher, but I was looking back at my own experience when a teacher would see some issue I was having with something and then
Mhm.
off the cuff say, well, I'm giving you a different assignment from the rest of the class. And that
Right.
actually happened many times in my life where a teacher would say, this is what they're all going to be writing. I want you to write this. And I think it was because I was kind of a weirdo. I was a renegade. I never fit in any place. So they could see that I needed maybe something on the side. But anyway, remembering that today, I was thinking we could all try that ourselves. I do feel like staking out around a grief has been helpful to me ever since. And
Mm.
I didn't even thought of it really in that way till that moment. And writing from different ages, wow,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
older we get, the more ages we have to write from.
That's
Oh
true.
gosh.
That's a good point. It's one
So
of the positives of aging, I guess.
yeah,
We have
right.
more
We got more
more
ages.
ages.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's beautiful. Yeah. I love that idea of circling grief. I've never really thought of it that way. I think I've often mentioned in this and other places that like here in Vermont, no one uses the front door. We all use the side door and come through the mudroom, so you don't get things dirty. And I think sometimes that's what you have to do with really difficult material is like you have to come in through the side room and kind of like get all the mud off and take off the boots and the raincoats and everything. And that's how you get into it.
That
Um,
is a perfect image, James, because you know how in Buddhism they talk about the mud has to rise to the surface of the pond
mm,
before it can be clear, or that's true. You're kind of shedding some of the
yeah.
detritus of your day or of your confused thinking to find some new point, any new point of clarity.
Yeah. And I think it happens in like these really side door strange ways, circling ways sometimes, like the green-handled spoon that my father always requested to eat his soup toward the end of his life. He would not eat from another spoon. And like writing about that was just, it
Yeah.
just opened up the doors to grief for me. And I had not even thought about that for years and years. It's just those little things.
You have given us that. Yeah, someone has just written in through the side door. That's such a gorgeous image. Come in through the side door. And how many side doors can memory have?
Mm,
This poem I have here, it's that I've read, called Moon Over Gaza. I think
mm,
of it as kind of a side door
mm.
because it's like the moon's voice looking down on Gaza and speaking its point of view. Um, should I read it?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
The moon over Gaza is speaking. I am lonely for my friends. They liked me, trusted my coming. I think they looked up at me more than other people do. I, who have been staring down so long, see no reason for the sorrows humans make. I dislike the scuffle and dust of bombs blasting very much. It blocks my view. A landscape of grieving feels different afterwards. Different sheen from a simple desert, rubble of walls, silent children who once said my name like a prayer. Sometimes I am bigger than a golden plate, a giant coin, and everyone gasps. Maybe it is wrong that I am so calm.
Mm,
This week everyone was talking about the moon. Go outside and see this gigantic, gorgeous November moon we have. And yeah, that was definitely a side door. How ridiculous all this fighting and vengeance and horror looks. Um,
yeah. Yeah, and the grief of both sides, all sides, um every war has two losers. Didn't
yeah, William
William
Stafford.
Stafford say that? Yeah.
Yeah. Someone asked who wrote that poem. Sorry, I did.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
thank
Naomi's.
Yeah. Um, and I think about lines of William Stafford's, which have been with me all my life. Well, since I was 16 when I first started reading him. And one line that I think about when you've seen too much news or you're in a place of overwhelm, any place where there's just too much hustle and bustle and you can't stand it. I think of the William Stafford line, in life, I don't like much to happen.
I can relate.
It seems like sort of a less important line, but I think it's really important.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we need less to happen actually so that we can see more,
Yeah.
because we are so inundated these days. And, I wonder, Naomi, I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but just how you hold the collective grief. I mean, you've been writing about Palestine and Gaza for decades,
Yeah.
long before this current devastation. And I just wonder how you are able to hold that. Are there a lot of side door times? Is that how you're able to enter that grief? And yeah, just
Well,
curious about that.
I feel so much gratitude to uh, Palestinian poets and uh, people who've been writing about this for such a long time. And I found a copy of a little poem I have very rarely shared or read. I think that those of us who have experienced the grief of Palestine all our lives, we uh, we're so shocked that the last few years could have been allowed to happen. I mean, I'm totally shocked that this amount of vengeance would be acceptable to anyone on earth. And for people who are still baffled by the horror of October 7th, that didn't come out of nowhere. You know, I often think how people who commit such horrific acts of violence as were committed against Israeli people on October 7th, how many of them has anyone ever done this statistic had been mortally wounded by grief as young people, having their own families slaughtered in their presences, um, seeing terrible things happen. This is not justifying what they did in any,
Mm.
uh, but that question never seems to be asked. And as a Palestinian taxi driver said to me once, I think I wrote this down in 19 Varieties of Gazelle. He said, nobody ever asks about the story before the story. You know, they just,
Mm.
you know, like, where did these people come from who could commit violence? What has happened? Um, yeah, somebody just wrote generational trauma. Um, you know, I felt like my father was grieving the death of his best friend on a bench sitting right next to him in Jerusalem when they were 20-year-old men. And his friend was shot by an Israeli soldier with a huge gun. They had never even been aware of Israeli soldiers. They were just like coming into being. They had never seen them before. They had grown up, Arabs and Jews together, in the old city of Jerusalem. And it was such a shock to my father. Like, why would his friend be singled out? And he was not singled out. And, you know, he held this trauma his whole lifetime. He never came to terms with it, but he was always trying to speak, you know, out for justice for other people, because he was so traumatized by that. Wait, I'm still looking for this poem here, James. But you know, I think I have. Here it is. I've experienced, you know, a very intense period here of 4 years of grief with my mother dying, then my son dying, then Gaza coming, and you know, it wasn't as if Gaza was a new trauma. I had been worrying about it and writing about it way before, so it was something that was already there. And you know, I guess I might ask myself, well, has so much grief made me better at dealing with it? I don't know, but I think I have more strategies now as,
Mm.
um, you know, a person who's just been waking up with grief for quite a while now.
Yeah.
I'll read this poem by a great Palestinian poet. He was a friend of my dad's. His name was Sami Al Qasim. He was a journalist, as my father was. He was born from a Druze family in Palestine, and he wrote for newspapers, and he wrote songs as well, anthems of for justice. But here's a famous poem of his, and I have a picture uh, where it's myself standing with Sami and my father and my son, and I keep this picture because it's so haunting to me now with all three of them gone. And I think how, you know, this is, I mean, it's not a trauma you worry about when you're a child. Like, I don't want to be the last one from the pictures left.
Right.
But I read Sami's poems as a kind of gift to myself since I didn't know him. So here's from one of his poems, just a stanza. The day I'm killed, my killer, rifling through my pockets, will find travel tickets, one to peace, one to the fields and the rain, and one to the conscience of humankind. Dear killer of mine, I beg you, do not waste the tickets. Take them, use them. I beg you to travel.
Mm.
I just think that's one of the most staggering
Yes.
poetic stanzas I've ever read in my life.
Hmm.
And his name again, I'm going to put it in the chat.
Yeah, that would be great. Yes, I
because
know.
he's not as well known as many other Palestinian poets because he really focused on being a journalist.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah, such a powerful stanza.
and when I think of that, I think there are places that kids in Gaza still dream of going. You can see them on Instagram and they are talking about where they would like to go, what they would like to do. Did you see the little farmer Ahmed 2 days ago with his little
Mm,
pack? And he was saying, "I'm so excited, everybody!" in Arabic. I'm going to school. This is the first day
mm,
I've gone to school. I didn't even know schools are. I think tiny little miniature schools are kicking up in private little hovels everywhere around Gaza, and the kids are so excited. So someone's asking. I put Sami El Qasim's name in there. Where is it gone? Oh, maybe. Oh, there it is, up at the top. Sami El Qasim. He's up at the top. Look quickly before he goes away. And the name of the poem, well, there are various translations of the poem, and it's sometimes called "Use the Tickets" or "The Tickets." Uh, and the other stanzas from the poem are good too. But if you Google his name, you will find the poem. I'll
yeah.
put his name in here again. And, I think there are so many incredible poets who have died during this latest horrible nightmare in Gaza. A number of them are contained in this British book, Out of Gaza. And I just want to read you the beginning of a poem here by Mohammed Musa. And it, this is just how the poem begins. But to me, this is such a great expression out of a moment of overwhelm. I can't keep up with the rhythm of war. The ambulance sirens at the top of every hour and their nervous sounds, the loud explosions and stun grenades before them during the hours of darkness. I love how this poet begins. I can't keep up. This is too
Right.
much for me. How is any human supposed to function, make coffee, make breakfast, find food, do anything? It's a miracle. Those of us who have been communicating with people in Gaza during this whole nightmare, when they say, "Oh, actually, I had a chance to have a coffee today, and I took its picture for you," and they'll send me a
Mm,
picture of a coffee cup. I just want to cry because it's easy for all of us to get coffee, but for them, it's a huge victory. And,
yeah.
this book, Out of Gaza, New Palestinian Poetry, by many people who've died, um, unfortunately, by many young people, um, is from Smokestack Books in England. I
Mm,
strongly recommend it. It's a thin, cheap anthology, and the poems are breathtaking. And, you know, I'm so grateful to uh, all the people who advocate, for justice or for peace, whether they're poets or not, but who are moved by struggles of others to want to help in some way with language. And I did want to mention, only this morning I found a notebook from the Virginia G. Piper Center for Creative Writing in Arizona State University. I took a workshop there 2 years ago with T.C. Talbert on
mm,
grief and joy. And they conducted one of the most amazing workshops I have ever been part of. And I will put this poet's name here. If you ever have a chance to take a workshop with them uh, on grief or on anything else, I would urge you to do it because I have about 45 pages in this notebook. It was the first thing in the notebook that came from that one workshop. And it was so helpful because I was still, it was right after the October 7th
mm,
trauma, too. And I had just passed the 1 year anniversary of our son's death. And I, I felt grateful that I was starting to be able to write about him. And I feel that the poems I'm working on right now relating to him, they're growing funnier because I
Mm,
feel like I'm regaining more of his personality versus the trauma aspect. And
mhm.
so, just to be able to acknowledge that he would be so annoyed with us if we did nothing but, you know, gloom around for the rest of our days. That would
Yeah.
really annoy him. So I'm able to approach him with a slightly different attitude. And I hope that that we can believe in poetry in that way, that it helps us get to that place where we can experience our grief from different angles.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I mean, we were just talking last week with January Gill O'Neill that part of the process of writing about around grief and trauma is often that in the beginning you're really just taking notes because you're only able to scratch that surface of the trauma and the pain. And then as your relationship continues to deepen, I think the writing can also deepen and we can get to the funny parts, the surprising parts, the absurd parts that happen with our loved one. I think that's a beautiful thing. I was also going to tell you, Susan Campbell, one of our folks who lives in Alaska, she says the side door you enter from there is called the Arctic entry, and it keeps the frigid air contained, prevents it from pouring into the house all at once, especially when it's like minus 30 degrees. So I love that idea too of, when you're just beginning to write, when you're coming at something from the side like that, that it's a way of containing the pain so that it doesn't seep into everything, so that you're not glooming around. I think that's a beautiful verb for how it can feel sometimes. It's just glooming around. Um, and sometimes you need to, there's no choice, but
That's
sometimes there's a
right.
choice. You can give away herbs or,
That's right.
write a poem for someone.
I so much treasure the poet Jack Riddle,
Yes.
Ridl of Michigan.
Yes.
I have known and loved Jack's work for years, and Jack wrote me like a little card after my father died, and he also had been very close to his own father, and I knew he had been writing about his father at some for some time already then. And he said, Naomi, just remember, grief is an ambush. It will catch up with you when you're not expecting it. You'll be walking down the sidewalk, boom, it'll hit you. And just anticipate that. And when it comes, you have to let it come and you have to be with it for a while. You can't pretend it's not there. You can't force it to transfigure itself in a moment. You just have to say, okay, I'm here with the tears or the sorrow or the glooming around, whatever you have to do, you have to do that. You have to accept it. And something funny happened last summer. There are a few people on this Zoom who have gone to the Tasahara summer writing workshops and in California, connecting to the San Francisco Zen Center. And I mentioned to Paul Haller, the beautiful, wonderful, much beloved Buddhist teacher whom we've all been sitting with for years now, um, that I really missed in the renovation of San Francisco Zen Center the huge mural that used to be on the wall when you entered the Zen Center in San Francisco. And he said, what mural? And I said, the one that said in script, everything changes. And he looked at me and he said, that was never there. There was never a mural that said that. And I started arguing with him, this Buddhist main teacher who has
Well,
been
you have a great memory in your
20
defense.
years. I mean, he's been there much longer than I have. And I said, it was there. And he said, it was never there. That was in your mind. You walked
Wow.
in and you saw it in your mind and you thought it was on this wall. It was never on this wall. So that was fascinating to me. And I swore that I had a picture of it. And I started scrolling through every picture I'd ever taken in San Francisco. And sure enough, there was no picture. And that that has stayed with me because it's like the mural we make up in order
Mm,
to survive. is
Yeah.
that yes, I'm in a state of ambushing grief right now, but everything changes and it'll
Mm.
ease by tomorrow, by 2 weeks from now, by this afternoon, and poetry being the most immediate genre. One thing I always like to say about it in this small attention span period of history, uh, poetry can do that for us quickly. You can
Yes.
read a poem and just feel so much better about everything without like a lot of buildup. One other thing I want to say about the TC Tolbert workshop was I believe it was called ephemeral arrangements.
Mm.
So that relates to grief being this ephemeral presence, but also recurring, and how it arranges how we arrange ourselves with grief, how grief arranges itself inside each one of us. Um, yeah, and a lot of it was about noticing, observing, and noticing things very close at hand that we might not even have realized we were noticing. And how do we notice them on this particular day?
Yeah. Well, the poet Emily Ligren, who's here with us, who is a friend of yours, she gave us in my monthly writing community last month, she gave us this wonderful grounding exercise of looking for three actual things in the room or just outside of the room with you. And it's, that paying attention to things that are close at hand, that's another way to enter grief without necessarily having to enter it because your poem is going to carry that signature, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily all about the grief.
Yes, that's a great writing practice. Thank you, Emily. It's beautiful to do that. It also
Yeah.
kind of relieves your mind, just to. One thing TC Talbert had us do was look out the window and write what you might remember from out this window, but you can't move. You have to stay in your seat. Just look from there. And
Mm.
it's really surprising how many different things were out that one window
Yeah, right.
and how people notice them differently.
Mm. Yeah.
And here's a new book I just received. It's from Australia by a poet named Vanessa Proctor. The book is called On Wonder. I love that. I guess wolf space on the cover.
Yeah. Yeah.
And from a poem called A Brief Catalogue of Joy, this stanza: turning off the news, the world opens up to birdsong.
Mm. That's beautiful.
That's the first stanza of a joy poem. And I think definitely the news takes an oversized place in our lives these days. And I'm not saying we have to turn it off, but I think we need to balance it, definitely.
Definitely. The outer news, the news that scrolls through our minds as well. It's nice to have a balance between the two. Well, would you like to read a poem to just lead us out today, Naomi?
Sure. I will read a poem. This is an anthology called Notes from the Field, made by the Lake Flato Architects of San Antonio. I'm very happy when architects want to acknowledge poets in their community, because I certainly care about buildings and looking at spaces people make. So they invited some poets. They were doing interviews with architects and articles. And may I read two short ones? One
Yeah, please.
one by Jenny Brown, a beloved poet who lives right around the block from me here. And her poem is called I'd Like to Be a Door. Since we've talked about doors, it feels fitting right now. A glass one, where the whole world goes pink at dusk. A battalion of grackles settling down on the endlessly tangled wires of war, which both is and is not a place made of words. I'd like to be this door in particular, thorny with shadows, screen winded by waiting. And I'd like to be that door, yellow pine, scuffed, stained, and grainy, just barely holding itself together like a country.
Mm,
And here's one of mine. This is called In Certain Buildings. To be given space, awaken to space, where to look, wider ways of being, openings you hadn't realized were missing in mind or sight, lifts the moment, an hour, changes everything you held. Now there's a way to funnel sorrow elsewhere into dissolve. Crowded memory. Let that go. Find another place to stand.
mm. And what was the name of that one, Naomi?
That's just called In Certain Buildings because
Certain
I
buildings.
always feel this kind of breathtaking feeling of joy when I walk into a Lake Flato architect building. I walked into a school in San Diego a few years ago, and the first thing I said was, "Is this a Lake Flato building by any chance?" And they said, "How did you know?" And I said, "Well, they're my friends." And they were so impressed that a poet cared about architecture. Well, of course we do. We're building with words all the time, and
That's right.
um, yeah, and that feeling when you sometimes step into an old space or a big empty space or a beautiful space. Um, I just came back from Paris, so I stepped into so many beautiful spaces within the period of 2 weeks. It's overwhelming even to think of them all. And yeah, just holding space and finding new places to stand, and how that can also help us with our grief, both physically and metaphorically. Thank you, James.
Thank you so
And
much, Naomi, for sharing this space with us.
I can't wait to see you again. Thank you all for listening.
Yeah. Take care, Naomi. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks to
Bye bye
everybody.
now.
Oh, lessons from architecture. I love that. Thank you so much, everybody.
All right. Bye bye now. All right, friends. Hopefully you got the information you needed from Naomi. I know there were some questions about the workshop she mentioned. That was TC Tolbert, Tolbert, and it was ephemeral arrangements. And just so you know, I will do my best to locate some of the poems that Naomi read, but I may not be able to locate every single one of those because we kind of got a glimpse into Naomi's personal office and library today. So, yes, deep gratitude for Naomi and for being so generous with her time with us and speaking so much about grief. So, what I would love us to do right now is do a little writing. I think we'll do a shorter writing session just so we have a little more time for those people who might want to share today. And I'm going to propose that we do 10 minutes writing. I will put our packet into the chat here, the Google Doc. It's the same as always. But I am going to propose, even though we had Naomi as our guest, she read the Jenny Brown poem, I Would Like to Be a Door. So you're welcome to use any of the other prompts that I've suggested for Naomi's poems, but I would like us to maybe consider exploring Jenny Brown's prompt from her poem, I Would Like to Be a Door, and see where that carries you. For some reason, that just really stood out to me in our discussion of entering grief through the side door this week, as well as Naomi speaking a lot about openings and standing in a new place. So, this image of threshold and doorway is really alive for me right now. So, I'm going to suggest that I would like to be a door, or um, any of the other prompts and poems that I have listed for you there. And then we will come back together in about 10 or 12 minutes. I'll give folks more time to write. And then we'll have some time for sharing, and I'll explain a little bit more about how that works when we get to it. All right. So prompt is dealer's choice, but I'm going to suggest, and I'm going to do the prompt. I would like to be a door. That's from Jenny Brown. And we'll be back in about 10 to 12 minutes. All right. Happy writing, everyone. All right, friends, so let's go ahead and come back together. Please feel free to keep writing if you would like to. So, the way that this sharing session will work, as I mentioned in my email, is that I'll ask you to use the raise hand function at the bottom of the screen there. Should be right at the bottom for you. Might also be under reactions if you're not seeing that on there. And then, so raise your hand, keep that raised. I'm gonna promote you to panelist and bring you on. It might take a few minutes here and there, but it should go rather smoothly. So you'll probably have to unmute yourself, turn on your video whenever you are promoted to panelist. But yeah, we'll just be patient with each other. And this is really a chance for you to share a poem, share anything that you're going to be carrying with you. If you have more specific feedback that you want to give me about the webinar, please feel free to email that. Not necessarily the place for this. This is more just like a celebration of our 4 weeks together. So, yeah, let's get started. I see Rachel has her hand up first. And so she'll be joining as a panelist.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Here it is.
There
Whoops.
you are.
Hello. Great to
Hi,
see you.
Rachel. You too.
So I went from the prompt and it's short. So it's from the prompt, I would like to be a door. My vow. We had to choose a vow. Write it on the back of a large white index card and read it to the circle while the sensei rang the bowl. Sorry. My vow was to enter the gate, not back away or stand staring through, but enter, pass through. This will feel strange. I've spent so long inspecting the wall. Touch the wall. Run your hand across it. Pray to the wall, wondering how and when. The wall, of course, is a gate, and everything exists inside the view of a single bird, his single eye circling. My body, the unknown terrain.
Wow. Everything exists inside the view of a bird. Was that the line from the
Mm.
piece?
Inside the view of a single bird, his single eye circling.
Yeah, wow, what a striking image there. That single eye circling, and it made me think of what Naomi was talking about with the circling of the grief. The way you were talking about the wall also made me think about that. Like we're sometimes circling our grief in order to protect it or some past pain or trauma, and that makes sense for us, right? That's what we had to do. Um, Really beautiful piece. Thank you so much for
Thank
sharing
you.
that, Rachel, and thanks
Mm.
for being here for this time. All
Thank you.
right. Yeah. Take care. And next up, we'll have Melinda. And don't worry if you don't see the unmute or turn on video yet. You should see that when I bring you on the screen, but we'll work with you if you don't see it right away. You with us, Melinda? There you are.
Just pressing the buttons.
Okay.
I pressed the buttons.
Well, we can hear you, but
Okay, that's good enough.
okay, I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. Hi, James.
Hello.
So I wrote this morning in anticipation of this last group that's been so useful. It's called Dark. The sky outside this cafe is darkening by the minute. I forgot the forecast and came out without an umbrella. Just as the world seems to grow darker by the minute when I listen to the news, and the forecast seems only of doom, as if the forces of darkness are winning, greed and vengeance mounting like glowering clouds, destruction blowing in. When it pours down, I'll walk home in the rain, hood up, taking with me the warmth of this small community of strangers, this weekly oasis of calm in a turbulent world where the server smiles and knows my name and I know hers. And my friend saves me my favorite seat every week by the window where the sky today is darkening.
Mm. Beautiful, Melinda. Oh, there you
Ah,
are.
yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, that image of being there in the morning, but then the sky darkening, because of the coming rain is speaks so much to our times and I think speaks to the experience of grief as well. That ambush, like Naomi was saying, and I think Rosemary Watola Chalmers described it that way too, that, we never know when that darkening is going to roll in. And I really like how it kind of wove itself in the final part of the poem as well. And yet, to me anyway, it didn't feel as heavy or as dark because you had been talking about the warmth and
Thank you.
connection of the oasis at the cafe. So I think that was sort of illustrative, even though you wrote this before the session, of what Naomi was saying about, stand in a different place, take on a different view,
Yes.
and it will change how we kind of hold whatever storms are passing through too.
Yes, I didn't really want to end on the word darkening. But thank you. I think because
Yeah,
it was the sky today is darkening, and we know that tomorrow it probably won't be, or maybe it will, but the day after that it won't be. So thank you for that
yeah,
understanding.
absolutely. Yeah, feels absolutely right to me. But thank you, Melinda.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And next up will be Aaron Sim. Yeah, the weather changes, as Emily Stiles says, the balance of dark and light ever changing. I was just thinking, here in Vermont, our weather's been so turbulent that, sunny one moment, stormy, rainy, sleeting the next. So we never know. I mean, it could just be this moment that it's darkening, raining, or stormy.
Hi. I
Hi, Aaron.
realized it would be
Welcome.
a multi-stage process to become a panelist. Thank you so much for these sessions. The gift you give us of these guest poets has just been so wonderful.
Absolutely.
Here's the prompt. I would like to be a door that swings both ways so that no one ever feels foolish pushing or pulling without reading the words push or pull on my surface. I would like to be bright red to welcome good fortune, or made of a particularly beautiful grained wood that never weathers poorly and draws my hand again and again to stroke it. I would be a door that welcomed friends and made foes feel as if they could find comfort and safety, gladly laying down their grievances before passing through. The door I envision is just under my skin, its hinges somewhere near my heart, its clean, clear window the other side of my pupil, where I can see you and know how much you want to be welcomed.
Mm. Wow, Aaron, that is so beautiful. I love that sense of ending on the welcoming and also the journey of this poem because we're all just imagining, the typical wooden door at first, but then you make it about yourself and your body and the door of the heart and the window of the pupil of the eye. And then it somehow becomes much more embodied and much more real. And we're becoming more of a metaphorical doorway to welcome others. So, I just, it began in this very kind of matter of fact, like I would like to be this, and I would like to be red, and I would like to be, a wood that doesn't weather poorly. And then it just really opened up and became much more universal toward the end there. I'm sure you felt that too as you were writing it, and it's probably surprised you. um, but yeah, I love your door, as Dio was saying, and I think we would all like to be a door like that or like to have a door like that. So thank you so much for sharing that with us and for sharing the space of the last 4 weeks as well.
Thank you for the opportunity to share it and for all your comments. I appreciate them.
Absolutely. Take care, Aaron.
You too.
Thank you. All right. Next up is Susan Campbell. Yes, I would like to hug that door as well. There is just something about a door that, with the right texture, it just makes you want to touch it, makes you want to turn the knob or whatever it is. So, hi, Susan.
Hi. Hello, James. Thank
Hello.
you. Thank you.
Yes.
Here's the poem I wrote to the prompt.
Wonderful.
Arctic entry. In Alaska, we call the small room you enter from the side door the Arctic entry. It keeps the frigid air contained, prevents it from pouring into the house all at once. Because when -30 air enters a warm room, a huge swath of steam billows over the threshold, roils across the floor, crawls up the wall. I think of grief this way, an imploding cloud filling the space it's given. I would like to be a door in my heart's Arctic entry, a door that knows its knob, knows how to slowly open, knows its threshold and the weight it can bear.
Mm. I want to hug that door too. Thank you so much, Susan. Yeah, when I read what you wrote in the chat, I was thinking like, gosh, this could be a poem, this idea. And so I'm so glad that you said yes to kind of making it into this beautiful, beautiful piece. And um, yeah, a door that knows its threshold and the weight it can bear. Susan is quoting you here. That's really wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you all.
Absolutely. Thanks, Susan. All right, just wonderful pieces, everyone. Gosh, you're putting mine to shame here. um, Next up, we have Janice Falls from Ottawa, Canada. And yeah, as Guy Reed is saying, just the title, "The Arctic Door," Susan was wonderful, just lovely. Hi, Janice.
Hello, my dear friend.
Hello.
This has been such a richness, James. I can't tell you how much I have enjoyed and needed this. I did start a poem back in the first week, but it's quite long and it's really not finished. So I'm just gonna give you the one that from today's prompt.
Sounds good.
I would like to be a door, perhaps one of those half doors. The bottom's solid and can stay closed. The top see-through and can stay open. That way I can retreat in my solitude while remaining open to what passes by, allowing others to sometimes enter my space. But wait, would that mean I'd stay inside, only engaging with the world from the safety of my own room? No, I want a door that swings open wide to greet it all. The guest house, as Rumi said, a joy, a depression, a meanness, welcoming it all, leave nothing out. Be with the sorrow when it comes calling, as well as the joy. Maybe I don't even need a door.
Yeah, right. See, the strength of this piece is that you begin with the half door, which I love because, like, Lori Levine is saying here that we're all given this prompt door and we all imagine these different kinds of doors, right? So you begin there and then you allow the poem. You're not being self-conscious. You're saying, I don't know, maybe that would mean I'd have to stay inside and I don't necessarily want that. So you kind of go back on the half door and then you go back on having a door at all at the end,
That won't
which,
surprise them.
yeah, that's a surprise. It's a risk for in the poem to kind of go back on where you began. But I think that's the beauty. And this is Naomi's spirit is so playful. So I think she models for us these kinds of creative leaps that we can make. Um, but yeah, so surprising and just a gentle leading us into what would it be like to not have doors and not shut ourselves out, people out, so a lot of thought-provoking pieces here. Thank you,
Thank you.
Janice.
Such a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure for me too. It's sometimes hard for me to stop talking about the poems that you guys are reading, so I'm restraining myself so we have plenty of time. All right.
Okay,
Good to
thank
see
you.
you, Janice.
Bye-bye.
All right. Next up, we have March Sizer, an old friend from Nebraska, though she may be elsewhere now. I'm not sure. So we'll welcome Marge soon. There's Marge. Are you in Nebraska, Marge?
I know I moved to Columbia, Missouri to be
Oh,
with near our son's family.
okay. Not so far away. Not so far.
So we can go to the basketball games and the other events of the grandsons.
Lovely.
So this is a poem. Oh, well, it's the grandson shows up in this poem. I wrote this poem in the writing time of that first week. And also one of the suggestions of look around in the room and see something. It's called What I Wrote When the Poet Said Write. The famous poet invites us now to write, gives us an assignment. Ah, yes, I must now describe an image, and my eye is drawn to the photo of Calvin, the young, splendid, earnest, German, Irish, English face I have, through my DNA, contributed some part to. Perhaps his hairline, his brow, maybe the lower lip of his smile. I see a word on his gray t-shirt. The word is North, all caps. North was his high school, wasn't it? Wonder why he chose that t-shirt that day. But no matter. There I am beside him. Look how much taller he is, a head taller. The photo doesn't show his arm around me, but it is there, unseen, all the more steady, eternally there, because he has the hope and strength and stance and vim, unsullied as far as I know, framed, cropped to enhance his youth forever, or at least as long as that photo sits on that particular shelf. Thank you, Calvin, for everything. Everything you have made and are making of that DNA, everything your cells and neurons, chert, mitochondria, synapses are making of it. Thank you, you wonderful accumulation, you aggregate. Soon you'll discover, no, I won't go there. My role, as I see it, is to stand beside you and be enclosed by your strong left arm. Receive your word of direction. Be captivated by the shape of chin, the beginning beard over beautiful bone, to love it and to lose it. Something will get each of us someday, Calvin, O tender-hearted man of the North, steadfast gray column of energy. Some claw will reach out and rip out our smiles and our breath, but not today. Calvin, no, not yet, not yet.
Lovely. Wow. It almost feels like you were writing this in a trance, Marge. I mean, it feels like it just pours out. And I love when you're meditating on that arm around you, obviously looking at this photo. And I'm struck again once more that a photo can give so much that, you can go so deep. And I love that you were going literally deep into the DNA and, the mitochondria and all of that. And then calling him an aggregate and an accumulation of cells and neurons and all these things, because it's just a delight to think about the miracle of, you had a child who had a child, and you're now looking at a picture of the two of you together. And we were just talking about a poem that kind of goes towards something and backs away, and how, you went to the someday, no, I won't go there, but then you did go there later in the poem. And I think it's perfect, because how can we not go there? We know that we are temporary. We know that, the blush of youth does not always stay with you, of course. And yet you brought it back to not today, not today, not yet, not yet. And I love the stubbornness of that, of like, let's just stay in this moment for right now and enjoy what's here. So yeah, as Emily's saying, a perfect circling of the subject there, and bringing in the grief, reminding us of our own mortality, but in a way that actually makes us more present too. So thank you so much for that. And say hello to, was it Calvin?
Yes,
Yes.
I will.
Yes. I hope he hears that poem or has read that poem too, because to be immortalized, right?
But you're right. You're right about writing from photos. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really powerful. Yeah.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, thanks, Marge. Take good care. All right, next up is David Hartnett. I'll welcome David on screen. And yeah, those photos, what a rich offering. So I'm glad that Marge took us back to the George Bilgier poem in the very beginning. Hello, David. Hi, David. Are you with
I
us?
I hope so. Can you hear?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, your picture is a little jumpy, but I think we can hear you perfectly.
Oh,
I think you're good now.
okay. Well, the sun comes in at different angles.
It does.
And
Yeah.
usually when I read poetry, I assume the Irish for David Dahi. But thank you all for for poets that were here and the ones that are in attendance. This is also was from a photo. Um, it's called Mom on Sunset Boulevard.
Mm.
A gold-sprayed young man sprawls himself across the bar of a rusty gray metal chair. Below the chair, a golden satchel straddles the seat and drips downward. I wonder if it holds a silver chalice. Beside him, but an arm's length apart, my mother stands, resolute, draped in black. Black dress, black bag, black hat, with two pale hands, lonely doves.
Mm.
Her round, ashen face, smudged with inky eyelashes, applied by shaky hands, along with rouge lipstick not quite straight on pale rose slips. Atop her dark raven hair, an enormous black hat somehow balances itself, while the pink carnation announces that it is alive and deserves attention.
Mm.
As if my mother has stepped right out from a Toulouse-Lautrec portrait. And she has run away again, this time to join a circus. If that is the case, it explains why, at this very moment, she sidles up to the clown, the one sprayed with golden paint. That same clown, lusting for knowledge, yet hiding his sad, vacant eyes behind the darkest of glasses. Both of them looking so forlorn. Both of them looking so lost, only wishing to be normal.
Mm. What a surprising ending. Thank you for that. And I just want to say too that I love the way you really brought us into this photo. I just felt like, so many, even like inanimate objects, like the straps of the knapsack pouring down and your mother's hands like lonely doves, like you're giving life to these things that aren't necessarily moving, that are in the still of a photograph, and really bringing them alive for all of us and showing us how much, as Marcia's saying, that they deserve attention, that they deserve this close inspection. So, yeah, really beautiful piece. Thank you so much for sharing that.
And thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being with us this 4 weeks as well. All right, next up we have Dio Robbins. Hopefully, I'm saying that correctly.
Yes, you are. Here I come.
Okay.
There we are. Thank you, James. This has been wonderful. It's my first poetry workshop, really loving
Yeah.
just all these doors opening now. This is written from the prompt Instructions for Healing. Where are you going so fast? Are you afraid the sadness will catch up with you? Roll you to the ground and slice through your grieving heart with a cruel fierceness, killing everything you thought you were? There is nowhere to run, you know that. But rather lay your body on the earth, your mother, and surrender to her your endless tears.
Love that. That's so lovely. Well, I can't believe this is your first poetry workshop, first of all, after hearing that. I love, you probably did this accidentally, Dio, but there, earth, mother, tears, there were all these R sounds that really came in there at the end. And, I loved too, it's a very, violent imagery, this idea of like slicing through the heart, but it is how it feels. It's very truthful to the experience of that. And I think what made this piece feel so open is where it actually began. It was something like, why are you moving so fast? Or
Where are you going so
where are you
fast?
going so fast? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because when you open with a question like that, you could be talking to yourself, you could be talking to someone you love. It almost doesn't matter. You kind of open it up more widely for other people to enter into the universality of this experience. Like Naomi and I were talking in the beginning, that this is universal for all of us. And when you ask that question, it sort of hits all of us because we're all going too fast and avoiding things at some point in our lives, right?
Yeah, it's
So,
about, for me, the busyness
mhm.
that would keep me from the grief
Yeah.
until I stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, Naomi has said in, I think, one of her poems and in other interviews that she never uses the word busy because she doesn't like for people to say that to her. She doesn't like to say that because it is one of those ways that we use to avoid, connecting with that deeper part of ourselves. So I really commend you for taking the risk, for joining this, for sharing your piece. Not everyone could do that. So I really appreciate
Thank you,
that.
James.
Yeah,
Thank you
you're
for
very
this
welcome.
class.
Thank you, Dio. Nice to see you. All right. So next up, let's have Susan Lipson joining us as a panelist soon. And again, we'll get to as many people as we can. I think we'll have time for everyone. But within the time that we have, we'll get to everyone that we can. Hi, Susan. I think you're still muted there. There you go.
There you go. Hi, nice to meet you in person.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. So I wrote to your wonderful prompt, I would like to be a door, but I wrote, I would like to be a staircase. I
Wonderful.
would like to be a staircase, lifting people daily, winding, not straight, to enable new perspectives, yet with steps wide enough to offer safe footing. I would like my banisters to be firm, crafted of an ancient tree, one that fell naturally and wasn't chopped down, so that hands that grip the wood absorb the reverberating green energy of nature as they raise themselves upward with my support. I would like my steps to be numerous, rising as high as my climbers seek to go, fading into a soothing cloud shroud as ascension becomes reinvention, and the climbers look down upon me with a nod and a smile before finding a higher landing from which to walk forward, to reunite with those who ascended ahead of them.
Mm, wow. Whew, that one really took you over. And I love, how did you just think of switching it to staircase? Did it just come to you in the moment?
It just, as soon as you said that prompt, I'm telling you, it just flowed and I
Wow.
threw it onto the paper.
Wow. Yeah, I love that ascension becoming reinvention. And once you get to that idea of, the climbers, continually ascending, it feels like the poem kind of just took on this life of its own, really, even from the first line. But I'm amazed by that. And I was also struck by that phrase when you were talking about the wider steps, safe footing. It feels like that's sort of the central intention of this piece is like the idea of offering safe footing to people while they're climbing and to get to a place, an upper level of safe footing as well and greater
I,
perspective.
it's coming from, I have a friend who lost her husband, who's a dear friend of mine as well. It's a huge loss for me, but a way bigger loss for her. And I've been sending her writing prompts because I teach writing, and
Mm,
I'm sending her writing prompts to help her get through it. And I just hoping that I'm sending the right prompts.
yeah,
I feel like I'm trying to lift her out of this.
yeah.
So that's where it's coming from.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful
Thank
intention.
you for
And
letting me do that.
yeah, I love that idea of offering the stepping stones, the stairs for other people, because that is, I think writing can do that for
That's what
others.
you do. You do that
Oh,
always.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Barbara Bald is also saying I wanted to give some love to your banister metaphor as well, just like feeling that green energy from, we have like a spalted maple banister in our house from,
Oh,
wood that had fallen. And so I'm just, every time I touch it now, I'm going to think about you and your poem because it's like that green energy coming up through the wood
thank
is really wonderful. So
you.
thank you for sharing that and for sharing about your friend too. I really
Thank you.
appreciate
Thanks.
it. Yeah. All right. Next up is Emily Style will be joining us. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful gesture offering writing prompts to someone who's struggling. I try to do that too, but I think it's a beautiful thing to encourage people to write it through. Hello there, Emily. Good to see you.
James and everyone. It is just so delicious, um, so uplifting to have the opportunity, courtesy of technology, to be with each other and to practice our humanity. And Naomi's effervescent love of, I feel like every poet she's ever met, and
Yes.
and yours too. It is just such vitamin
Mm,
for this time. So I love that prompt. This is what I wrote. I called it Doorway. It's after Jenny Brown. I would like to be a door into a future where folks old and young in Palestine and Israel find friendship in the field Rumi identified, beyond right and wrong, a meeting place for them as humankind to be humbled and honored by their higher angel. I would like to practice being this door in my own life, in fields I come across or create, taking time to say to anyone I meet, hello, neighbor. Good to see you here. Being human in this space shared with wide sky and wild geese.
Mm. Gosh, I love the nod to Rumi. I love the nod to Mary Oliver at the end there with the wild geese. Why not? I mean, we're allowed to write about wild geese, even though Mary Oliver immortalized them. And I love too, Emily, that you don't just say, I would like for these two groups of people to find kinship and connection and friendship. You say, I want to practice being this door in my own life. Because I think that is, it's sort of like you begin large and you go down the funnel and it funnels down to each of us individually. And so I think this is filled with beautiful intention, beautiful words, and what a distillation of our time together today and these last 4 weeks too. So practice being a door. I love that word, practice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Take care, and we'll see you again soon. All right, next up is Paula. And I want to knock on wood, the technology is holding out for now. I'm always afraid of that not being the case. So I'm really grateful that we're holding steady so far. And thanks for all of your patience, because it does take a little bit of time for everyone to come on. Hey,
Yeah.
Paula.
Hi, thank you. I do want to say this has really been wonderful, all of them. And I actually I wrote from the prompts, and I want to thank you also for just your time and doing this and bringing on wonderful panelists, and that we don't always have to agree with everything, but it gives us stepping stones to write and to be creative.
Right.
And I kind of took a little bit. I actually wrote this from something when Rosemary Mary was on as a panelist, when she talked about like not just politics, but like she disagreed with some of the things that her son felt or did, and yet I wrote it about something that my daughter who passed away did feel. But also, every panelist was in what I wrote. So George talked about time collapsing, which is something that's in the poem I'm going to share. January talked about regret nothing, but of course I still have regrets. And
Yeah.
Naomi today even referenced that with every war there are losers. There are losers,
Yes.
and so okay. So let me get it up where. So. Um,
Well, I love too, Paula, that you're summarizing some of these
yeah,
lessons
so I'm
for
just
us
like, I
too.
mean,
So it's really helpful.
so thank you. So I call it, oh, wait a minute, you know what? I got the wrong copy up. I'm sorry, give me 1 second. But yeah, I am so grateful for this opportunity. All right, let's see. This one. Okay, here we go. Okay. Um, so I title it, Who Feeds the Festy Spoils? Awoke, startled with a flood on my pillow. Will the daylight forgive me? I cried. What more could have been done? What more could have been said? Why do some turn a blind eye? Yellow daffodils dotted amongst a green grassy field. Too many seen as pesty old weeds, yet fathered by the white fluffy head some believe, they offer wishes that float away on a breeze. Enmity manifests an African proverb. When elephants fight, the grass gets trampled, it reads. Indeed, the world's gone crazy. Those in conflict still weep, for all in battle lose sight, and everyone bleeds. Yea, yep. Sigh for the soul of all people, sigh for the soul of the land. A lost, loving heart cannot cry. I know the pain it would have cost her not taking a stand, to still see innocents who hunger and die. So the albatross, for three I now shudder, hers, theirs, all burdened with mine. Oh, if if dandelions' wishes could only come true, for wherever it happens in time, each life a great value to just be. Now you see, I could not bury her name, but lend it to love thy neighbor, hoping a luminous peace may remain. When someday we will not covet each other, different religions alongside will pray, then side by side at one table to dine, with all nations to share the harvest we grow, and freedom's bell loudly will chime. Listen, then know, we are better together. Let's arrive to honor all humankind.
Hmm. Beautiful intention, Paula. I mean, just the music of the language was there. I heard lots of internal rhyme throughout and lots of repeated sounds, like a lot of L sounds that you used. And again, we've talked about starting large and kind of going more specific. Sometimes you start more specific and then you go large at the end, which is what happened here. And there's no right or wrong way. You start where you start, and then you end up at this sitting at the same table together, and I love that image. And so many of us are, taking up that mantle of ending in a place of welcome, ending in a place of kinship. And I think it speaks to all of our cravings, no matter what we believe, what we practice, what, our loved ones believed while they were alive, that there's still this craving to just sit at the same table and share that kinship. So your piece captures that so well.
Thank you. And it came and like from all of the panelists. Also, like I felt like it was
Yeah.
all like every one of them spoke something that was in there. And again, thank you for this wonderful opportunity. It's really been just and I love doors, by the way. So I think it's like I can't wait to write something on the door. But I wanted to share this one, and I have to really learn how to read better when in public. But
No, you're great. You hit some of those sounds really well. So they were coming through. But reading out loud to yourself is a good practice too, just really listening.
I did find that after because I was writing it really about the new issue that's happening in Sudan right now as well, the
Mm,
civil war. And if anybody wants to look up about that African proverb, it's very because it's basically about how the big guys fight and all the little people get hurt, and that's where it
yeah,
came from. So I added that in there. But anyway,
I love
again,
it.
thank you. So grateful.
Thank you so
And I
much,
loved
Paula.
everybody sharing too.
Yeah.
Thank,
All right. Take
thank,
care. Thank
thank you.
you. All right. Wonderful. Next up is Maureen C. Yeah, and it's the beautiful thing about poets responding to other poets is that your responses are often as beautiful as the poems themselves, too. Hi, Maureen.
Hi. So I took the prompt that we were given just now, and I've titled this to my mother at 2 years old.
Mm,
I would like to be the door in the farmhouse in Swedetown and hear the conversation stop when your father comes in with his anger like a storm, upsetting everything. How you held on to Edith and Charles for cover, which was the cause of his anger, that you, his daughter, loved the aunt and uncle you lived with more than you loved him. I would like to be the door between his anger and your fear. Hold it closed. Lean in with all my weight.
mm. Beautiful, Maureen. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love the idea of going way back in time and wanting to protect someone from something traumatic and painful that obviously they will have carried with them for the rest of their lives. And, I think that would be a beautiful prompt to offer other people, this idea of going back in time into a parent's life and, wanting to offer them some sort of protection or change something, because even the desire to change that, I think, somehow changes something within ourselves too at the same time.
Yeah.
So beautiful, beautiful piece. Thank you for
When
sharing that.
Naomi talked about writing as a 12-year-old, or what age are you? And I thought that's an interesting thought. So that's kind of where it
Yeah.
came from.
Yeah, I love it. That was the seed of that.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, next up is Catherine.
Hey there.
Hi, Catherine.
Thank you so much for this has just been such a gentle and kind and compassionate thing to be a part of, and therapeutic and generative and all the things. So thank you. Thank you for doing
So
this.
glad. Yeah, you're welcome.
This poem was inspired after the second session, and I think your prompt had started with "The story is not yet over."
Mm.
So you cradle their grief like a swollen belly. Nothing fits right. Even your shoes feel too small. You scald your skin under high pressure spray. You worry about all the hair clumped at the drain. You wonder how there is anything left on your head. You wonder how there is anything left in your veins. The last drops went to your spouse, your child, your student, your aging father. Lovely, keep a whisper for yourself. The weed that has crept from the crack in the driveway. The moth alight with a crumpled wing.
Mm. Wow, those final images. Keep a whisper for yourself. I mean, I wish I could just recite the whole thing and just carry it with me, but the weed sprouting from the driveway crack and that moth alight with the crumpled wing. Was that how you described it? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. Just that idea alone of feeling so drained and giving so much and keeping just a whisper. I mean, hopefully that whisper can grow and, keep more for yourself. But it's like it has to start with something. It has to start with a whisper. And yeah, so you capture that so well. Yeah. Thank you so much for that,
Yeah.
Catherine.
The moth has a crumpled wing, but it's still alight. It's still flying.
That's right. And we've seen those. We've seen the moths,
Yep.
they may not be able to fly too far, but they're still flying. They're in flight and they're still beautiful too. Yeah. Thank you for that beauty, Catherine. Thanks so much. Bye-bye now. All right, next up is Barbara Bald. Hello.
Hi, James and everyone. James, I want to particularly thank you, yes, for the guests and the prompts and everything, but just this opportunity to, I don't know, be with other people and connect and just hearing the incredible things that they're producing. It's such a high for me. And there's, I have to say, there's grief on the other side because when this ends,
I know. I don't want it to end either.
well, I need to do, I need to feed the birds or whatever. It's
Yeah,
like, do I really have to leave? I want to
I know.
take you all with me.
Yeah.
And, we might not all get along if we were in this house, but for right now, it's
We'd
wonderful.
have poetry. I mean, that's enough, right? We can get over anything if we have poetry.
James glasses. I was gonna. So I'm a door. I would like to be a door that leads me to a room full of puppies. Their bodies squirming, scooting everywhere, in and out of legs, under chairs. A different kind of chaos, devoid of hate. Here, grab onto this doll, knotted in the middle. You pull one way, I'll pull the other. Ooh, excuse me, was that your tail? Upside down, curled like commas, feet batting the air. Their smiles show white teeth like a clown's circus grin. Step over my threshold, grab a red bowl, a green one, a squeakered or not. Everyone's invited. Come in without expectation, without the baggage you've been carrying. Come through this door, my door, where these furred teachers are inviting you to remember who you really are.
Boy, they do sure do that, don't they? They invite us back into the children, the playful selves that we all still want to be. I love that the door, the threshold was leading you into this playfulness. And once again, that note of invitation that comes in the end and a different kind of chaos because we see the wrong kind of chaos that plays out in the larger world. And the puppies, right? I mean, how unless you're allergic or deathly afraid, which I understand, but how can you not otherwise just be delighted by puppies, kittens, small children, baby animals of all kinds? I mean, it's such a playfulness and delight that you've invited us into, Barbara.
Tired of the heavy, and the interesting part is it had a different ending, inviting you to forget just for a moment who you really are. Forget who you are, and it just didn't ring right. It was like who you really are, not to forget who you are, but to be who you really are. It was interesting to watch that switch
Yeah.
happen.
Well, that you were able to feel it in the moment too, that, oh, that does not feel right because we're not actually forgetting who we are. We're remembering our true selves. And I think that's true with poetry too. It's like we do kind of forget the outside world to some degree, at least I do when I'm in the midst of writing. But then I remember who I really am. I feel like that's what really comes through in the writing. And it's play too. Even when I'm writing about difficult things, it can be playful.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Barbara. Take care. All right, next up is Karen Kassinger.
Is that right? Can you hear me?
Yep,
Okay.
can hear you and see you.
So first, I just feel so grateful. I feel like I'm partly just that you offered this, James. The poets have been amazing, and the conversations, but the poetry today has just kind of blown me away. What's come out of each writer, but I feel like I'm just in the midst of that Ram Dass statement. We're all just walking each other home through all these doors, or we are the doors, or there aren't any doors, but we're all just doing it.
Yeah.
And you make this possible by the community that you've created since COVID through your heart's desire and your footwork and diligence. So I'm really grateful. So
Thank you, Karen.
this goes back to the first time with George Bilger. I was just totally caught and stayed. The time has never let me go. So this is called Closure. I ain't got no closure, the poet said in conversation about grief. It's like an Enzo, I commented in the chat. Life is an Enzo. In the black and white snapshot, there I am, a happy, grinning, bursting with pride of self, pigtailed 10-year-old, standing tall on the high stilts my dad had made. It was an afternoon in the 50s, and I was
And even in play, my hair was braided into loops secured by bows. I wore saddle shoes and socks. My blouse was still tucked into my skirt's waistband. So tall, so balanced, so sure and proud of myself. On a recent day in my ninth decade, I found this snapshot in the plastic tub that holds the not yet organized images of still points of the past. The story of me began to be rewritten yet again. The dominant narrative of these recent years has been, this is the happiest time of my life. I was unhappy for so long. And yet, there I am, on a sunny day 75 years ago, happy on my stilts, sure of my balance as I stood on this new and taller version my dad had made for me. I'm grateful that there is no closure, that life continues to flow in and through the opening of the circle. Grateful that the story is never finished, that it is always becoming new.
Grateful that the story is never finished, that it is always becoming new. Oh, there's so much to comment on, Karen. We don't have time for all of it, but I love that image, going back to childhood, as so many of us have in our pieces, and you standing on stilts too. There's something about that, looking from a different perspective of height, and then now you're looking from the different perspective of age. But there just seems to be something, as someone is saying, very evocative about that. So I'm grateful to you for your kind words and for sharing this piece with us today. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next up we'll have Julia joining us. Hey, Julia.
I'd like to
Welcome.
ditto everything everyone has said so far. So happy to be part of this workshop. The poem I'm going to share was prompted in that first session we had, talking about photographs, and this just took me to a slightly different place. It's called His Body as Autobiography. If you had asked my son about his tattoos, he would have told you his life story. Turn his body like the pages of a graphic novel for you to see his art. Jester on the back of his left arm, the first tattoo, gift from his brother. Lacrosse stick covering his right calf. Kalimata, the goddess of time and a warrior, covering the left calf. Calvin and Hobbes on the upper left bicep. Now he'd twist around to show you Hellboy on the other arm. Barrel shrimp with its compound eyes to see through the darkness. On the lower right arm, he'd hold out to you. Perhaps you'd take his hands for a moment, letters etched on the knuckles in his brother's handwriting, spelling out, hold hope. Lifting his t-shirt, he'd show you 3 doors across his abdomen. 1 blue, 1 yellow, 1 black. Turns out the black one is where the pancreas is located. Prayer flags that drape the door added after the diagnosis. That's the most recent he'd offer, matter-of-factly, like a docent wrapping up a museum tour.
Wow. Oof, there's a whole life contained in that poem, and I love the title. It was Autobiography of His Body. Was that it?
His body as
As
autobiography.
right, right. Yeah, wow, beautiful descriptions and just the way you made that come alive and how the body can become this map and this series of symbols. So I have much more to say, but we're running out of time. So thank you. Just want to thank you so much for sharing that with all of us and for joining us for these 4 weeks. It's really beautiful.
Thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Julia. All right. Wonderful pieces, everyone. Just so impressed by what you've been able to come up with. So next up, we have Karen, who will be another Karen who will be joining us as on the screen here to share. And someone asked about an upcoming program with Rosemary Watola Tromer, The Stubborn Praise. I'll put a link here if anyone would like to join, but I'll send out a whole bunch of links and things in emails. Hi, Karen.
Hi. Thank you so
Welcome.
much for bringing me on and for the whole thing. I want to just echo what everyone else has said as well. I'm so grateful to be able to be here, James, and thank you so much for holding the space with such warmth and tenderness. I'm feeling a bit anxious, a bit nervous actually about reading what I've
Understandable.
written. And I'm wondering if I'm the only person here outside of America. I'm in Scotland
You
and I
might
don't
be.
know. Yeah. So lovely, so lovely to be here. So much of the whole course and tonight, what people have read has really resonated with me. But one thing I've been aware of, I've written a lot since we started. One thing I've been aware of is a lot of anger coming through in what I've written, which I don't feel hasn't come through so much in what other people have brought. So yeah, that's making me feel a little bit anxious as well, that's what I'm writing about. And I don't kind of want us to end on that note, but I've noticed it's been really strong for me. So here we go. It's called Don't Speak Ill of the Dead. Don't tell me not to speak ill of the dead. Death does not grant you diplomatic immunity. It is not a pardon. It doesn't make the truths untrue, doesn't right the wrongs. It's not a clean slate on which to rewrite the story, clean it up, sanitize the toxic parts. It doesn't erase the wounds, the hurts, the things that were missing. It only adds to them.
Yeah. I'm so glad you wrote this, and I'm so glad that you worked up the bravery and courage to share it, which I honor in you and in everyone who's shared, because I know it's not an easy thing, although this is a very gentle, supportive space for all of us. I'm glad you shared that because, grief is not always about mourning someone that we love or mourning someone who was necessarily even a good person or who treated us well, that there's a whole spectrum of experience. And I appreciate that you're just being honest about that. This did not sound particularly angry to me. It sounded honest and truthful more than anything else because, in some ways, if you lose someone with whom you have unfinished business or who did terrible things to you, there is still that layer of loss, but there's an incompletion, I can imagine as well. And that I know I have felt myself with certain people. So, I want to honor the whole spectrum of grief, and it includes everything. Anger is a part of it, even when you loved the person deeply and they were a good person. Anger is still such a part of it. So I'm really glad you read that, Karen, and I'm glad that you took us there. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah. And thanks for coming to us from Scotland. I know Anja is here from London, so you're not the only one from the UK.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is Marcia Rutan. Yeah, and Pat West is saying anger gives you something to rub against. That's important. That's really important. Hey, Marcia.
It's funny to see it this way. All of a sudden, the whole screen is different.
It does change, yeah.
Like this class opening up different doors, right? Thank you. Thank you. All right, the poem I wrote is based on from the first class with George Bilger with the photo. And so this was from a photo I found. Baking a cake. She's 2, a blue flowered tie-back apron falling to her ankles, while her daddy holds the glass bowl of batter she scrapes into an enamel pan. He's watching to make sure she can succeed in his long-sleeved gray Henley and jeans, black beard covering his face, turned away from the camera. Curls flare from the back of her neck as she stands sturdy on the vinyl chair, making sure the wooden spoon scoops the chocolate, her mouth slightly open, cheeks soft and round below seashell ears, excited for the cake to rise. But in 3 years, it's over when she's 5. He leaves, and I face the truth of my own lack of leavening, too bogged down by my parents' pain to stand on my own 2 feet in marriage. How many of their mistakes did I imitate trying to be an adult? 10 years to heal from playing out again and again, my mother's rage and sorrow, my father's clever avoidance, to finally be able to embrace the man who became my husband for the rest of our lives, to have enough sense of love and self to welcome the beautiful guardrails of marriage and see another person as they are instead of as a stand-in to fix the drama of my parents' broken hearts, to accept I can never heal them, that all I can do is learn to love, forgive, and keep rising.
So lovely, Marcia. I mean, we were talking about whole lifetimes contained in a poem, and it feels like so much. I mean, your parents, your ex-husband, your current marriage, like it's all just in here. And I love the way that it's framed by this baking of the cake. You know, people were pointing to some of your language, like the seashell ears, the lack of my own leavening, which sounds like levity, lightness, you know, that the lack of that um, being in the relationship as well. And it feels like such a healing poem to go back and really take an honest look and, you know, bring us into this current state where you hope to keep rising, right? Rising above those past pains and those past habits and behaviors that we all learned. I just, you don't hear a lot of poems or pieces of writing that are truly honest and truly reckoning. That's the word that came to me as you were reading. This is a reckoning with, you know, one's past and one's behaviors. So yeah, really beautiful. Could say a lot more, but I'll leave it there. Just thank you for being brave enough and courageous enough to share it.
Thank you.
With that. Thanks, Marcia.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, next up is Deborah Tremont. And I just want to say to folks, you know, we're trying to get to everyone, but if you need to leave, I totally understand. But we'll kind of keep going for anyone who's able to stick around and hear some more poetry. All right, Deborah, welcome.
Hey, James, thank you.
No.
I wrote something today in the writing period, which I'm pleased with, but I'm going to continue working on it a little.
Yes.
I'm another one of the listeners who was completely captivated by George Bilger. I want to
Yeah.
call him Georges Bilger, but I don't.
I know I want to say Bilger too, but
No. But anyway, I went back and I retrieved the poem that I had written as the prompt using a photograph. And it never, you know, it's such an amazing, and I've done this in grief to go back and look. It's just amazing what body language can tell us about relationships and family structures, etc. So I decided to go with it and just, you know, it's just a simple recitation of the photograph. And it's called Isolation. My family stretches out in a line, mother at center, children ages 4 and 5, and a swaddled infant cradled in a maid's arms. It is an odd arrangement. My mother glows in her mid-century role, older brother attached to her side, trying to hide, while I have separated myself, acknowledging in my stance my outsider status, already aware of where my mother's attention goes. I look straight ahead at the camera, legs sturdy, self sufficient, eyes questioning. Was Daddy holding the camera, or was he absent, working as usual? My sister sleeps in Emmy's embrace, a baby already beloved by all. Mommy always said how much she loved Emmy, a Black woman who was surely underpaid. She and the baby are behind us. After all, this was Jacksonville, 1953. That's the way things were. It is my self imposed isolation that catches my eye, repeated in other snapshots of the era. I hold the artifact in black and white with its scalloped edges, everyone touching another person, but not me. I stand alone, staring into a future that is yet to unfold.
Mm. Ooh, that's so strong, Deborah. I love that, and I want to point out too that, I felt this, maybe other people felt it too. You were kind of going along with the description of everyone else in the photo. And then when you got to you, it was like you changed, but it wasn't, the title is isolation and you're not touching anyone, but it felt empowering. It
Mhm.
felt like there was something empowering about you standing alone, knowing that your future was going to unfold differently.
Well, it was a choice,
Right.
and as again, that's one of the things you learn. And in almost every photograph of me as a child, I've carved out a place that's several steps away, or I'm at the end of the line looking in another direction. I mean, it is just,
That's funny.
but this is what happens in, for me, the long path of grief for my mother
Yeah.
was getting over the grievances and
Mm.
realizing the strength and reconciling, with her and the pressures that she was under. So anyway, it was fun, and I have just enjoyed this so much. But I always do. I think of Emily's style and how in chat she always refers to community, and that's what you've done, James, so beautifully, is to create a very welcoming community for poets. Poets with experience, poets just starting out, those that are nervous about reading, which I always am, and those that aren't. But it's just a very welcoming space. And I would
Yeah.
encourage anyone who's not part of the monthly pause to join. And anyone who has not taken advantage of participating in stubborn praise to look into that as well. It's just a wonderful evening of poetry. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Deborah. Really appreciate it. Love that piece.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we'll have Kimbro. Hopefully, I'm saying that correctly. Please always correct me. And you all create this community too. I do my best to facilitate, but I just want to say that you're all doing a wonderful job of creating this too. Hi there.
Hi, yes, you said it perfectly.
Oh,
And
good.
I don't know if the woman from Scotland is still on, but Kimbrough is a Scottish surname. So,
Oh, right, right.
and thank you, as everybody said, this was such a rich and generous workshop. Thank you so much. I wrote a very short poem. I think that Naomi said today something like the news is too big. And that stuck with me. So it's based on that. The news is too big for me today, hangs off my shoulders, trails behind me on the floor. Even the petite sized headlines don't fit, and tailoring is out of the question. So, yes, that was me you glimpsed in the doorway, naked to the world.
Wow. I love that. You know, there are these leaps, these playful pieces to this, and then the big surprise, naked in the doorway at the end. Oh, yeah, and tailoring being out of the question. I think that's so clever. I love that, Kimbro.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing that and for metabolizing that for all of us too.
Mm.
Well, nice to meet you and good to see you. Thank you
Yeah,
very
thank you.
much. All right. Next up is Anne Marie. Anne Marie Lepore. Yes, and I love how Doorway made a cameo appearance in that poem. It didn't have to be what the whole poem was about, but there is still that opening, that sense of exposure. Hi, Anne Marie.
Hi, James. I do have to echo other people about these wonderful 4 Fridays. From one of the earlier readers, she mentioned the word oasis, and that's exactly what it's been, a true oasis. And I thank you and all these other amazing, wonderful poets and how they've shared their work. I've worked as a registered nurse for 40 years, but I have had to stop working 5 years ago due to some medical issues. And I have such a deep desire to write, but have done very little except my own personal journal. So thank you so much. And I love what you just said about we can get over anything if we have poetry.
I believe it. I mean, it's a big promise, actually, but
Yeah, right. I'm clinging to that. I know,
yeah.
and I've never been much into poetry, but I have just, yeah, been developing this real love for it. So and I was very much attracted to and resonated with the whole Arctic entry and the mudroom and not diving full force. And so that's what I followed you. And I am so appreciative because I don't make time to write, which I'm dying to do or living to do. And but you're forced, having these 15 minutes each Friday has been such a wonderful treat. And I thank you for it. I hope I continue. But so I was so entranced with the Arctic entry. So I followed your prompt about I would like to be a doer, but I started out with a little, I guess you might call it preface or whatever. And it's Arctic entry, a side door that leads into a home to prevent the Arctic -30-degree blast from entering the sacred home dwelling full on. And then I wrote, I would like to be the door that buffets and shields and cradles the inhabitants of my attached dwelling space from the lightning strike of deep, excruciating pain and grief. A door that is able to cushion, the blow of sudden tragedy or even long, unending decades of grief, sorrow, and heartache. A door that absorbs the -30-degree chill of the Arctic blast. A door weathered and worn and still sturdy, strong, relentless, and unwavering. A door whose essence is loyalty, love, compassion, tenderness, and sweet kindness. A door that has not given up or given in to the cold, frigid air that pummels it relentlessly. Thank you for being able to share.
Beautiful, beautiful, Anne Marie. I mean, I just want to point out the music of your language, the door, warn, absorb. You're really listening to the words and just letting them unfold in the way you kept repeating adore, adore, adore. It becomes like an incantation, like a prayer you say for yourself. So really beautiful work.
Thank you for this opportunity to be here and to share.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Bye-bye now. All right, next up is Chris Haig.
Hi,
Chris.
James, and all my lovely peeps. Um, I don't usually write from prompts because I'm a bit of a contrarian and I resist doing what people tell me to do. I'm
Good.
sorry Susan Lipsome has left already, but she and I both came up with the same metaphor.
Oh, I love it.
So here is my poem that I wrote during our writing period called Steps. I would like to be a set of stairs leading up, heading down. And not just any staircase, but this particular one, under my orthopedically shod feet, as I tread each Tuesday to tutor kindergartners. These stairs of marble in the historic landmark building that is Beechwood Elementary School. A slight dip worn in each step by 114 years of young feet, climbing and descending, failing and succeeding, their shoelaces untying as they carry our world forward immemorially on their slight, unknowing shoulders.
Mm. That makes me want to cry. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. Oh, such tenderness for those students, for the children that are carrying so much on their shoulders, even more now than ever. That's really beautiful, Chris. Thank you for
Thank you.
that. I'm glad you're a contrarian for that piece you shared and for multiple reasons.
Yes, yes.
Thank you for that. Good to see you. All right, next up is Lori Levine. Hi, Lori.
Hi. I swear I'm not copying the woman from Scotland. Mine was angry too. The door. It's the door one. My first thought is to, oh, also I have bad language. Apologies. My first thought is to slam it shut with a big bang and a click of the hinge, maybe even a little shake of the wall. If I slam that door shut, I can keep it away. I can block out the force and the dark. I can unknow the pain that is to come. If I slam that door shut, I can safely stay inside with 3 kids, not just the remaining 2, with laughter and joy, and of course, arguing and snark. I can keep us safe, hidden away from the pain of the world. I can protect us from the grief that is to be, the shock, the numb, the ice, and the defrost. The days, months, and years without him. You see, with the door slammed shut, we had him. He was with us. He laughed and bitched and fret. It wasn't all good, but it was. That fucking door cracked open and in one fell swoop blew it off the goddamn frame. What remains is the big open rectangle where a door should be. And through that space funnels the painest pain that ever was. All shapes and sizes come through that gap, all colors of rage and sad and loss. What the hell does one do with it all? Such is why you slam the fucking door. Sorry.
I love that there's some humor in it. And, you were talking about it being angry, but again, it just feels very honest to me. And thank you for the warning about the language for the delicate among us. But I just think you were expressing what you really feel. And I even wrote after my mother died a few years ago, it feels like you're just this empty door, like you're just this empty threshold, and that everything's kind of blowing through. So I'm glad you wrote that. I'm glad you shared that, like Karen from Scotland. I think you're both just being really honest, and I really appreciate it. Thanks, Lori. All right. Next up is Leah, and then we will finish off with Pam. Yeah, I loved that. The painest pain. I've never heard that before, so that was totally new to me. Just yeah, power of that.
Whoa.
Hi,
Like,
Leah.
whoa, my hair's crazy.
That's what I have to do every time I get on Zoom.
Well, I just want to say thanks as well, just like everybody else did, because this has just been, in terms of, learning and expressing, just a wonderful thing, I think. And I'm also somebody who's been writing for a while, but I've never done anything like this before. So, but
Thanks for being
it's
brave.
just been a great experience all around, and I'm terrified, but here goes. This is in response to the door prompt, but I didn't, it's just about a door. I didn't say
Okay.
like, I would like to be a door, but when I heard the word door, this just came out. So anyway,
Beautiful.
here we go. It was just a regular door, standard in size, unremarkable in material, hardware, color. Ivory, I think, like teeth stolen from a matriarch, poached not gently as eggs, but ripped as roots from warm ground, and the giant mother left there, her bones to be visited later by quiet kin. I breathed in, out, and opened it. When I looked into the room, suddenly I understood what Romeo's young wife meant, after all the readings, the interpretation, the time, after all. Methinks I see thee now, thou art so low as one dead in the bottom of a tomb. Like Juliet, I knew before it happened. But prophecy is not preparation. And there you were, so far away, too close, there, along the wall. I had to turn away. I closed the door.
Once again, a whole world contained in that piece. That is just beautiful, mysterious. I loved that line, prophecy is not preparation. Because I love when a poem can teach me something that I need to learn. And that's something there. So, well, you've done it. Now you can take a breath. You read it, you shared it. We received it. You're getting some love for it. And thank you so much for being with us, Leah.
No,
I really
thank you.
appreciate it.
I appreciate it immensely.
Absolutely. Take good care.
Thank you.
All right. And lastly, we have Pam Kirby. Yeah, as Deborah's saying, that line would make a great prompt, the prophecy and preparation line. Hi, Pam.
Can you see me and hear me?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So I am also one of those people, my heart is beating very fast right now. I was secretly maybe hoping that we'd run out of time and you wouldn't get
Right. That was part of your plan, right?
the last one. Ever since I raised my hand, I've been a little anxious. I'm also someone who, this is really my first foray into poetry, but I have felt lately like there's language wanting to come out of me. And I heard you on Carrie Newcomer's podcast, James, and was just spontaneously compelled to be here. It does feel like such a safe space. So I'm going to share a little thing I wrote in response to the door prompt. And what I have found is I'm writing things that seem to be telling me something about myself that I didn't even know I needed to look at. So that's true of this. I would like to be a door so that I don't have to take sides. If I remain closed, I can live always in the middle of two truths, the inside and the outside, the other side and the other side. If I remain closed, all except me must exist on one side, longing for, fearing, anticipating, or assuming what is on the other side. If I remain closed, only I will know.
Mm. I love the repetition of if I remain closed, because to me it sounds like, this is a tantalizing prospect to just stay closed, but the person who's writing it and speaking those words knows that it's not going to happen, you know, that the opening will happen. And so that's interesting what you were, in light of what you were saying about the language and the poetry wanting to come out and also wanting to show you things about yourself. I can definitely see that with this piece. And there was also a repetition of the other side, and that there were two other sides really when you were talking about it. So I thought that was philosophical and interesting too, because there are always two other sides, right? Um, yeah, so meditative, philosophical, really beautiful. And you did it, just like Leah. So now you can take a breath, you can let go of that anxiety. And I'm so grateful that you said yes to showing up and to the spontaneous desire to, enter this space, which can seem scary from afar, but once you're in it, with the right community, with the right people, it can be very supportive. And it can be a place where these insights are brought to the surface using these images of poetry that come to us and come through us. So salute your voice, salute you for sharing that and showing up today. And
Thank you so much.
yeah, absolutely, Pam. I'll take you off screen so you don't have to be anxious anymore. But I just want to thank all of you so much from the bottom of my heart for being here today. The recordings should be available, as long as I can allow them to be. So you'll always be able to go back to them as long as you have those links. Just ask that you don't share them or post them publicly or anything. I will send you an aftercare with some info about the monthly pause community if anyone's interested in joining that, and also some events that are coming up. You can look for some in-person retreats that will be happening in the new year, mostly in New England right now. So there's going to be one at Kripalu in Massachusetts in the Berkshires, one here in Vermont again, and working on some other stuff. So I know this is wonderful. Technology allows us to connect, but there are some in-person opportunities as well. And most of all, most of anything, I just want to thank all of you for showing up today, for being with us and co-creating this community, sharing your hearts and souls through your poems today, even when it made you shake and anxious and your heart beat faster. Thank you so much to new friends and old who are sharing this space. So take good care, everyone, and we'll be in touch. And I hope our paths cross again in the future. All right, bye-bye now. Bye, everyone.